Hi there, I'm Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez, and this is the Design Your Physician Life podcast, brought to you by our Maxillary Mastermind, a personal professional development program for physicians. Today, we're going to be talking about designing your obituary. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
I was born out of a young marriage love very early the morning of August 12, 1970, and was very fortunate to also have children born out of the deep love my husband and I shared later in my life. Life is meant to be lived and experienced fully, from enjoying your feet as they sink in the sand with each ocean wave, to watching snowflakes gently fall on you from a gray winter sky. Even in moments of profound grief, like losing a dear friend, we continue to open ourselves to new connections and learning. The key is being present for all of it. That could have been the beginning of my own obituary. And why am I thinking about obituaries today? Well, recently I reviewed 32 obituaries of people I knew as part of a reconnection exercise I was doing. And I was starting to see that how little value was in the short obituaries of many of those souls. I saw just one that really detailed experiences, not only of the normal format, within the normal format of an obituary, but detailing how it was worth to live that particular life. In many cases, I was really surprised. And I know it's, a small sample of 32 obituaries, but just think even about one single soul. In many cases, the obituary wasn't more than just a date of birth, a date of death, maybe what their profession was, who preceded them in their death, who survived them, and maybe where to send flowers or a donation. I was shocked. I could not believe what I was reading. So that's why I really want to talk today about obituaries, those final words and summaries of a person's life. Obits, which is short for obituary, I come to learn from this reporter from the New York Times. That's how she calls them. They capture our shared humanity and meaningful experiences. They're just not credentials. That's the way I feel about them. And my hope is that this podcast episode inspires you to write your own obituary, but not only write the obituary, really think about what goes into that. Think about designing your life, designing a life that's more purposefully right now. I want to review some things that are just like basic terms. I was thinking, what's a obituary? And if I want to say so many things in an obituary, meaningful things, how is that different from a biography? And how would be different from an eulogy? And an obituary basically should be this brief account of a person's life. And it usually goes in the newspaper or online. And it tells people about our key personal and professional milestones. And I was thinking, like, is that all it's supposed to be? I know that we don't want to fill a whole page. We would have just pages and pages of obituaries in the newspaper or online. But if this is what our life is going to be at the end of the day, after going through so much experiences that we have, especially as physicians, we've studied so much, we've seen so much physical and mental pain. And do we really want just to say, that was it, born this day, dead that day, and was a physician, and that's it? I don't know. I'm not sure. So not necessarily it has to be a biography, right? A biography is a more detailed narrative of a person's life with all the character and legacy and everything else. And I know that somebody wrote once something that I don't have time to write a short letter, because it really takes a long time to create meaningful words, meaningful sentences that are short, but that capture that essence that we want to transmit. The other thing is that we can talk about who's going to read this obituary. Is it going to be our family, our friends, a stranger? What would you like the reader to do? It's not only about you lived a life that hopefully was worth living, and what things you want to tell to that reader. if it's you writing the obituary. On an eulogy, for example, a different situation, the speech is a speech or a piece of writing that somebody else did on your behalf. You don't get to write this. Somebody is praising you. Usually, it's delivered at your funeral, and it will emphasize your positive qualities and achievements. It's funny because in a recent rom-com that I saw, there was this wonderful character, and she decides to have her funeral before the imminent cancer death that's approaching. And I believe that this character is very fortunate, obviously not because of having cancer and not seeing milestone like grandchildren or traveling all their bucket lists or all the things that you lose in your life by having a cancer death or the way that your health transforms, but in the sense that they had the time to plan a festive funeral with family and friends, connect with them, listen to their eulogies live there, their gifts that they had for them, give them advice, and love each other. So, not everybody has that time. I don't know what our destiny is going to be, right? But in this exercise, especially after seeing quite a few, and after I did this, I went ahead and then I went to listen to talks about people who had reviewed obituaries and people who have evaluated changes that are happening because of obituaries. I can tell you a little bit about that. So I only read 32 this last week, and it was quite a shock. And some of the things that I read after this, there was a project of somebody who reviewed 2,000 obituaries using artificial intelligence and the things that came from that. There's also a project that the New York Times has about obituaries and about people who have been forgotten, people who were famous for other things, but at the time, they were more focused on men and powerful men in the obituaries in the New York Times. And that's something that they're trying to change through that project. And I've learned a lot about what life is through these obituaries. At the end of the day, most of the obituaries will be written by someone else. So right now, the current conventions and formats include, the traditional format will be that there's your name, your age, the place and date of birth and date. There's going to be some survivor information, some career highlights, and then some funeral arrangements. Usually they're around 150 to 600 words long, depending on the newspaper's guidelines. And there was, for example, this guy who wrote, he's a writer, and they asked him, what was your most meaningful, your most important piece of writing that you wrote? And he said that it was his brother's obituary, but he gave that obituary to the funeral home. And at the end, they changed the whole thing. It was what? What happened there, even though they had provided that? So it's surprising that they will take that liberty, that freedom to change things. So maybe that's something that we should plan. I have not thought that far on who's going to, later publish my obituary. I'm just focusing right now on writing mine based out of these 32 but that's something to think about, right? Who's going to publish this too? Are they going to change everything that we want there after we wrote it? The structure normally will have, as I said, that those deaths, the cause of death is not there all the time. Not everybody wants to say the cause of death, that, it can be upsetting to many. But sometimes we really want to know. That's not something that obviously we would write in our obituary, unless you're the character of that movie or you're going through something similar in life. It might include some organizational affiliations, hobbies and interests, and some other things like that. The voice are usually written in a respectful way, like a formal tone in third person, even if they are written by your family members. And I don't know that necessarily has to be done. It's I don't know if we could say, what, I passed away on this thing and I lived my life in this way. But apparently, if we want to be published, at least that third person needs to be followed. They are submitted usually through the funeral home, or they can be submitted directly to the newspaper. One of the things that I was talking to a group of people after I told them about reading this over 30, it was we should write our own obituary. And they were saying, what, people write them and they're so upset and they're so sad and things are so quick that then you end up with these quick writings like, well, yes, you're right. So maybe that's why even more we should write our own obituaries to tell people what we really want them to learn about our lives and not leave it to somebody who unfortunately is grieving right now at the moment of that writing. Right now, we're talking about this obituary process in 2023, and the cost is between $100 and $600, depending on the length. Obviously, if it's going to be in the New York Times or the Washington Post or your local big newspaper, it might be more. If you want to have a page for obituary, that will certainly be even more than that. One of the things that I did after I thought about these obituary themes, like let's I'm here talking to physicians. Design your physician life, and then design your physician life, design a physician life that's worth of writing. Not only, I would not like people to know, oh yes, I went. Obviously, it was quite an achievement, right? Where you applied to medical school and you went through medical school, and that's going to be part of defining us as physicians in our lives. But I don't necessarily want to be known just by that. However, in general, physicians' obituaries apparently are known for a few things that are in common through physicians who spend a little bit time, or their families spend a little bit more time writing about their lives and deaths. So there's some similarities in some of the obituaries for physicians. One of them is obviously the emphasis on the medical career. Physician obituaries, they tend to highlight the details about our medical education, training, specialties, which hospitals we were working at, our credentials, our highlights of our career. So that takes a lot of our obituary. They also tend to mention passion for healing. I have yet to meet doctors who are not moved by helping other humans. And most of the physicians that I've known, I have to say, they have really been devoted to caring for their patients, committed to medicine and a passion for healing. And mentioning that this has been a calling historically has been a theme in physicians' obituaries. Then the patient relationships, if you have some space, they might mention some meaningful relationships with generations of patients over decades of service, and maybe an anecdote might be included to personalize the care, the relationship that was present. Obviously, awards and honors, there's going to be a listing of accolades, awards, special honors from medical associations, and things to establish a reputation and esteem among colleagues, and then hobbies as well. Sometimes we will mention, as physicians in general, some interests or volunteers. Not us, our families will be the ones writing most of our obituaries. So they will mention all those interests and volunteers, and trying to get a glimpse outside of the life in medicine. So, in summary, physician obituaries will focus heavily on our career details, achievements, and passion of medicine, while trying to, portray a commitment to patient care and a life of service. But what I don't see in these obituaries, in the 32 that I read, in this summary about physician obituaries, is what we really feel in our lives. What are those things that really moved us, and experiences that we want to share with people because we didn't take the time to write that, to share that knowledge with others, to really write our last words. And in reviewing this, there's some very famous obituaries are famous that, from famous athletes, famous technology, from famous artists, right? Sports people. And we truly don't have to be a poet like Maya Angelou, who did her own obituary to get the message across. I sure personally would want to be known as a healer, someone who did one of the most honorable things that I think there are, which is to take pain away and have my patients enjoy life and get back to their own selves. But that's not everything that defines me as a human, or I would love people to know more about me than when I was born, where I was born, when I died, and I was a physician, that I care for my patients because I do all those things. But I want to really have other people to know more about me, especially after so many happy and so many hurtful moments that we've all had. Like, for example, don't we want to let others know what really moved us? Like, if we were ticklish on our feet, yet we love feet massages, I think that's an important one to share. Or which books to really read early in your life that will keep you from and others from trouble, keep you away from trouble, and allow people to sustain longer and more meaningful relationships. Maybe recommend everyone. One of the things that I think everyone should know from me, and if my obituary has a space, I want to write about a Turkish bath with a bubbles cocoon. At least once, you should experience this in life. It's just a time of connection. I remember living this moment where I was just being surrounded, bathed, wrapped with tiny, tiny little bubbles. And just that moment of connection, I felt, oh my goodness, I would love the world to feel this feeling of just like someone caring for you at that moment, and you having this all this sensorial experience. I was very grateful that I lived so long to experience such a thing, and I would love the world to know that. So I'm thinking that goes in my obituary. There's also, another experience, like make a point to visit the darkest place that you can and see as many stars as possible above the clouds. It's a wonderful experience. Tell people to gamble at love, even though for sure you'll get hurt in some way, shape, or another. But what is life without love? Love guides me, love guides my life. And none of these things are mentioned if I just say where I was born, which schools I went to, which awards I had, that I'm survived by my beautiful children or my spouse, or where to send flowers. Those are lessons that personally I'd like to give others. And those are lessons that I've had the opportunity, the blessing to plan, the blessing to achieve. That's the way I would like for you to design your obituary, by designing a wonderful life. So, why is it important to write your own obituary? Obviously, it will ensure accuracy, right? You don't want somebody else to say that you went to the wrong school or wrong year or something like that. That's fine. Or an award that you didn't win. But it also will give you a personal voice and inclusion of meaningful details that may have been overlooked about others, because at the end of the day, you are the one who knows yourself the most. Um, so let's see how you can make your obituary more meaningful. One of the things that you can do is share personal experiences. Like I just explained to you some examples in my life, lessons learned, and give some advice so that you're making your obituary more engaging and reflective of your individual, unique life journey. Share some personal experiences and sensations. I'm telling you, once again, please go and get the Turkish bath. You don't have to wait for more obituary to be published for you to think about that. Um, then choosing a respectful and authentic tone, something that will be meaningful to you and to others. You know what? One thing that would be wonderful is to be humorous, right? And a joke, do something as a joke. And if you're somebody who really experiences that as a true trait that defines your life, laughter. I'm personally, like, I'm the greatest audience for anybody who's funny. And you would not see that from my obituary if it was written by somebody else. So that will tell people to get to know, that who I really am. And we can do that in a respectful way where others will be inspired as well. Describe your relationships and connections. Capture the unique essence of you as a person. So remember to just put anecdotes and personal reflections and expressions of gratitude, and try to be a little bit more, comprehensive, be balanced, explain, give practical advice, however, in a short way. So that's why we need to take time to write our obituary, because it takes time to write things in a very short, concise, meaningful way. So the goal of my conversation with you today about obituaries is really to try to honor someone's humanity, your passions, your wisdom, not only just status of what we did and who we were and all those things. I feel that our lives are meant to be, felt, explored, learned from. And I believe an obituary should reflect that, especially after reading these obituaries. It really broke my heart when I saw just some of these obituaries from people I knew in the past that only stated where they were born, when they died, and where to send flowers. I don't think that really does justice to their lives. So, appreciating life is what this is about. The essence of the obituaries and the potential for making them more impactful and reflective of your journey and humanity. That's what I'm telling you. Design your obituary or your your obit for short. And remember that designing your obituary is really designing a meaningful physician life. Have a great day. Well, guys, that was it for today. I hope that you found some inspiration and you develop your own workshop at home to design your own obituary. But remember, it's not about writing that obituary per se, it's about designing a life worth of mentioning and remembering in a wonderful obituary. If you want to know more about us, please visit our website, maxsalure.com. That is MAXALLURE. You can also check out our YouTube channel at Max Allure Mastermind. I hope that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful life. See you then. Subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast, give us 5 stars, and share with your family and friends. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.